Hey everyone, welcome back to the Boys in Motion podcast, the spot where endurance meets good vibes, questionable ideas, and a lot of data as well. I'm Brian, joined by Andrew and Tyler, and today we're talking about how to get faster, stronger, more consistent without adding more training. Yep, that's right. We're diving into 7 marginal gains that you can make outside of your workouts that actually move the needle.
I'm excited for this one. This one's a game changer, especially if you've already been training hard and you felt like you hit that nice plateau. The truth is, it's often the 23 hours other than the hour you're working out that determines how well you perform during that 1 hour of sweat. So today we're hitting you with the easy, evidence-backed things that you could do to compound over time.
I'll be honest, one of my biggest gains from the last year wasn't from those big interval sessions, but was taking my sleep way more seriously and getting those extra few hours before the key sessions or when I was feeling a little bit bogged down. It may feel a little bit weird at first, you're running tight on time, but my workouts ended up feeling way better and sharper. So yeah, this stuff works, and today we're going to break it all down.
Wonderful. Well, good to be chatting again. Let's dive into the first one. It's the perfect start because you mentioned it in the intro, Andrew. It's sleeping like you mean it. So the first point really is on sleep. It's vital for endurance athletes. We're putting out more output than most people, and also in combination with, all of that other stuff that everybody else has in our lives, we're putting out massive amounts of energy and effort for, a lot of time every week, anywhere from right now, I don't know about you guys, but 10 hours in a week seems like a down week. So certainly being able to rest and recover helps a lot more. Andrew, you mentioned trying this. Taking that sleep and leveling it up definitely makes a difference. What's your perspective?
Yeah, I'm definitely someone that on that sleep, I definitely feel it in the week and on my big sessions. So I think really taking that sleep time and taking time when you are bogged down from either a really big session or the day before a session, and just increasing that sleep time is super important. I think some on weekends or a day that you have available that you don't necessarily have hard commitments, and allowing your body to rest and recover once in a while, maybe not having an alarm on one day or every week, maybe every other week, is a great way to really let your body rest, recover, and kind of get ready for those big training weeks.
Yeah, 100%. And I think one of the things, you could call it a sleeper hack, is leading up to a big race. I didn't realize how much I guess you could say I put sleep to the side and prioritize training, but really you should be looking at that balance between both, for example, throughout your whole training plan, but also leading up to the race. So race week and even into taper. So 2 weeks before, I usually try to prioritize 56 hours of sleep per week. So I actually switched that mindset this year, talking to some other veteran athletes, let's call them, and they kind of treat it as a volume week as well, but on the sleep side. So if you have work commitments or something, you're getting, 6 hours of sleep one night, well, you try to get that back up with 8 to 10 hours the next night, or so on and so forth. So the 56 hours is just a 8-hour average per night. So you just try to really prioritize that sleep on a week by week basis.
Yeah, I know something that was super popular. It was a book that came out, Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. He's a PhD and studied sleep science a little bit, and he talks a lot in that book about the power of sleep and how to kind of use rest to power you through kind of anything. I don't know if either of you have some of the Cole's notes on that, but it's definitely something that had a spike in virality when it came out, and I think a lot of athletes kind of adjusted. I know for myself, one thing that I tried to practice this block specifically is more consistent and earlier bedtimes, as well as a little bit earlier but far more consistent wake times. I felt like that really, really helped my body just like understand when it's got to shut down. And a big one is at least being in bed at a certain time every night and trying as much as possible not to have screens in bed. I'll still often find myself watching a video or listening to something late into the evening when the curiosity's got me, but I definitely think that consistency muscle applies to more than just your workouts and going out every day, but it really was beneficial to me to be more consistent in the time I'm going to bed and waking up.
Another thing that I want to point out that I think is a big thing for me is just kind of that sleeping environment and having it set up for success. I know recently with moving to a new apartment, I have a west facing window. So depending when you're going to bed, waking up, and also Mischievous and I work often different times. We have a nice set of blackout curtains. And as far as the darkness it gives for that sleep environment is so nice for falling asleep and kind of just waking up, not from the light, but just kind of when my body is rested. And also room temperature. Either in the summer, especially that hot summer, having a nice cool room, and if you don't have access to kind of your AC or kind of the temperature control, having a nice fan on you is also super nice in the summer. Just that moving air, I find that really helps with creating that perfect sleep environment.
How do you like the blackout curtains? That's been something that's been itching at me. Like it might be a nice buy. Have you seen like a good ROI on that buy?
I love the blackout curtains. I think for us particularly, it is nice because of Mischievous sleeping during the day. So for her, it's absolutely essential. But I find it's nice just creating that total blackout. And also it brings down the room temperature without having to crank the AC. So for us, that has been super nice as well.
True, true. Tyler, what about your sleep setup?
That's true. I did used to have a blackout curtain, and I liked it too much. I just would sleep all day, all night. It didn't matter what time it was. So it could also be spooky in that effect. But I'm a big fan advocate. The fan, as soon as I hit the pillow, the fan goes on. Like we have AC blowing, but I just like the white noise as well of the fan right beside my dresser, just like a table fan. Doesn't even have to be blowing on us. I actually blow it straight up into the air. But I just love the white noise, like we're just talking about, right? Keeping things consistent. I try to, like you, get to bed at least in bed at a certain time, decompress, even though I'm not, catching Z's by 10:30, I like to be in bed by 10:30. So just trying to keep things consistent.
I love it. I'm the same way, and I think the fan was a big purchase recently, and really it's just been like kind of this past summer. Now that we're paying our own electricity bill here, it's really nice to have a fan in the room, and like you, the white noise is half of it. Now, in terms of tech, one of the big things I know a lot of people know this, but I was the Apple Watch guy out of the three of us, and I defended it, but I've since moved on, and I now have a Coros Pace. And part of the drawback of the Apple Watch was the battery life, in that I would have to charge it every single night, so I'd never have sleep data. Well, now I have sleep data on the Coros Pace 3, and I'm loving it. It's nice to be able to dig into the data after a night of sleep and see how you slept, not only just for like interest on like that single day, but also to think about like what are the different levers that you can pull to improve sleep. So sleep time is one thing, but I know, and we've discussed this at length ourselves and a number of other people, is how detrimental alcohol can be on your sleep scores. And wedding season is upon me, so it's tough to balance the two, but just having that data, whether it's your watch or some sort of ring. I know the Whoop has tons of recovery data as well, but I really, really enjoy digging into the data of sleep as well, just as much as looking up my runs on Strava.
Yeah, I find pretty interesting the quality of sleep, but then also with Coros, the overnight HRV. I know Whoop has this. I'm not sure if Garmin has it as well, but I find, especially with, if you have a night of drinking and having some fun, it'll be right into that red down below. But then it's also interesting to see the days when I do a really hard session, and then my HRV is actually super high, which doing a little bit of research is just kind of like, is your body like needs kind of time to repair itself. So kind of seeing, the different things you do the day and what it does to those metrics is interesting, and kind of like the readiness of when I'm ready to do another big session.
I'd like to talk about the next nice thing to do with marginal gains. And a very nice topic that I like to discuss is food. The rest of your day, not just during. I know we talk about every single workout, we talk about fueling during, slightly before, after, but I'm trying to bring this up as in we're fueling for the rest of the day. And, leading up to the next workout can be up to 24 hours later. So I think, just to start with it, recovery does start in the kitchen. You have to be thinking about, after your workout, what are you doing to get ready for your next one?
Yeah, so I have previously been a big fan of protein shakes after basically every single run. I will say I've recently been reading a few things that like having also like some more complex carbs, like not just the quick sugars, but some complex carbs immediately after big sessions is also very, very good. So really just like eating well and good after workouts is essential in just refueling. But protein, we'll dive in on that macronutrient, hitting a protein target, having certain foods that you rely on that have high amounts of protein is definitely an important strategy, just because it is that essential building block to muscle, and we're using so much muscle, straining it. And so to be able to fuel our muscles correctly is key. Andy, you're the carb man, so I know you'll be leaning in on how important carbs are, but I do just want to kind of push out a few figures. I know back when I was lifting weights, the gold standard was always kind of a minimum of 2 grams per kilogram of body weight. So 2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. Now, I think that can definitely range based on who you are, what you're doing, but making sure that you are tracking, even if it's like 1 week here and there, just to see what kind of food you're eating and where you might be lacking, is one strategy that I employ. I don't track every single day, but I've certainly tracked a lot in the past, and I'll still every once in a while track a full day so that I know kind of the staples that I'm eating now, what's in them, and how much of each of them should I be eating.
Yeah, protein has definitely been one thing that I've tried to bring a lot more, just paying a lot more attention to this block, getting in that protein right post workout and kind of making it that habit, because it is super important for recovery. But naturally, I am definitely more of a carb man. And although we're not always doing the mega carb load where we're getting kind of 8 to 12 grams of carbohydrates per kilogram of body weight for those big kind of hour and a half to 3 hour endurance events, we can still utilize carbs in a very strategic way. So kind of the night before big key sessions, whether that's a long brick workout, maybe a tune-up race, a long run, a long ride, it is a good strategy to maybe do a mini carb load where you're doing a big carb heavy meal the night before, and you will really find that helps the next day with performance.
100%. Can confirm that does work. Like Brian was saying, wedding season is upon us, and I just had my brother's wedding this past weekend, and I did not shy away from the extra piece of pie at the end of that day because I knew I had a long run the next day. So it actually worked out that I had that extra piece of bread and that extra piece of pie, and I was flying the next day on the long run. So can confirm that does work.
So for your brother's wedding, Ty, just to confirm, you did a long run not the morning of, but actually the following day?
No, the day. So the second day after. So like the wedding was on a Friday. I took Saturday off and ate all day, and then the Sunday I had the long run. So it was the kind of the next day of festivities. I was eating all day and enjoying myself.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, because I was at a wedding, of course, friend of the pod, Tomek, and we were up in Prince Edward County. And I don't know if you guys saw it, but the rascal and I got a little wild warming up for the wedding. That dance floor didn't know what hit it because we had
Wild.
a ton of work before the wedding, both of us 32K, and I was freaking by the end of it, running like basically a half marathon pace for those closing kilometers. It was nice.
Yeah, that was a freaky run. But I guess that actually brings me to the next strategy that has to do with fueling still, but it's that hydration after the effort as well. I focus on that kind of the most out of, let's say, everything nutrition wise. I just focus on getting that hydration in during, of course, but also after, replenishing up those electrolytes. I could imagine you guys had some nice salty snacks and even some nice salt pills. I call them my magic pills. We were popping them on the dance floor at your wedding, Brian, and those just help replenish those hydration stores, let's call it, the electrolytes, and then also keeps you going on the dance floor all night long.
I will say I didn't have any tequila shots with a little extra salt lick, unfortunately, but we were definitely hydrating throughout. Okay, again, we're sticking to not in the run. So pre-run, especially for a long session, I'm waking up and crushing water. This is one thing that I try to have the habit of, is like the moment I wake up, if I always have a water beside my bed. So the moment I wake up, I try to basically just chug as much water as I can. It's never more than 600 milliliters, but just getting that water immediately in starts the day off right with some water in the belly. And then after a workout, I'm doing the same thing. I'm drinking water or having a protein shake, which I'm diluting that and mixing that with straight water. So definitely staying up on that. And then once a day, minimum, I'm taking a scoop of pool water. So definitely keeping up on the electrolytes. And I think it's just about kind of building a habit around hydration. Whereas like food, there's a little bit more flexibility in my opinion. But hydration, I've always got the water bottle on me.
Yeah, very good tips. Let's move on to the next one, which is, I think, one of the most important, and that is reducing the cognitive load. And this is all about managing stress, because that will lead to better workouts. Working out itself, doing these long sessions, is just a crazy amount of stress. And unfortunately, we're all not just living that marathon monk lifestyle where all we're doing is eat, sleep, run, bike, swim, whatever. We have
bad,
other things.
That's
I know.
Too bad.
It does. I just watched the Ran to Japan YouTube videos, and he just talks about the marathon monk lifestyle, and he's living out in the mountains in Japan right now. And I'm just like, it's pretty nice. But for all us other people, we do have other things to manage in our lives. So let's talk about some of the strategies we use to do that.
So I want to turn this back on you because we were talking right before we hit the record button of your last week. And I think if you can kind of summarize what your last week was like, how that felt, actually looking at that side of the coin of like tons of cognitive load, what that can do to your body, to your workouts, to kind of your experience overall and your energy levels.
Yeah, so this past week I was on the West Coast in LA for work. So what that meant is that on Tuesday I flew out there. So there's a 3-hour time difference from Eastern time zone to Pacific time zone. So there was that to begin with. But the work days were very busy. They were kind of go, go, go. I was in kind of a remote office and then doing kind of work networking things, and then doing late night. We were doing overnight installs where I was up until about 4 a.m. Pacific time, and then waking up for morning Eastern time things. And I kind of did that until Friday. So last week, I'll tell you, I did not get the 56 hours of sleep, but when I got back, I was really happy it was a long weekend because I definitely caught up. But I was feeling quite burnt out after that trip, that's for sure. So the one thing is that the body was already feeling a little off, so I decided to just crank down the training down because, you know, I had to balance that scale, and other stuff just took priority that week.
And that's the thing, right? You had so much extra stress with work travel, long hours, networking stuff, late night installs, plus you're trying to do your marathon training, but like you've got an overload of stress from one part of your life, so you're not going to also have like great workouts on a week like that, right? Because that brain fatigue, that true fatigue, definitely limits not only your endurance and your capacity to do those workouts well, but also it wears on your like essentially your motivation to go out, and I would say your willpower to really go and hit those splits when you've burnt a lot of that willpower at work, for example. But the same thing can go with like family stuff and whatnot. Yeah. Tyler, anything to add on this cognitive load point?
Well, I was going to say first, I had to check the investigation mode here on Strava, and I actually did beat you in mileage last week, which is pretty awesome. It was one of my highest weeks of the summer, and it was one of your lowest, and I got you by 4K, so I'm pretty impressed. But yeah, I guess that just tells where, that cognitive load also does take a toll mentally and physically on you, even though you're not, working out every day or putting in all those miles, you're still exhausted. And you do need to take that into consideration when you're planning even your week and even staggering whatever workouts you can muster in. You have to see, I guess, quality of workouts compared to that quantity of just putting in a bunch of garbage miles because your brain just can't deal with it.
Yeah, and I think let's take the time. If you have like one tip on something that you do to reduce the cognitive load when it comes to like actually on the endurance front, I think for myself, it's just having a routine. So knowing when my run will be during the day, or at least like setting up that schedule for the week of like, okay, I know I'm going to do my long run on this day in the weekend, for example, or I'm going to do a bike here and this is going to be my VO2 max, just like structuring that week a little bit ahead. So doing some of that pre-planning all at one time for the weekly batch definitely helps reduce that cognitive load and that stress of, sometimes you get to like 7-8 p.m. and you've been pushing off that run all day, and that's just a tough way to go into that workout and smash those splits. I know, Andrew, you just prefer running in the evenings a lot of the time, but also that's sometimes just what you have to do. But it's definitely nice to know what that schedule will look like going into the week.
Yeah, 100%. To close that off, I think one tip for me is that I've been learning more of that this past season is don't play catch up on your workout. So the other aspect of it is, of course, I plan my week as well, and I try to make sure I balance everything properly. But again, if you miss that recovery run early in the week, or you miss that initial speed workout early in the week, don't try to play catch up. Move on, maybe change things around, but don't try to catch up those miles late week and crunch them all into that weekend warrior mode that we all love doing. Try to just stay on track moving forward.
Yeah, I love it. Let's move on to the next one. And this one's actually something I have been getting more regular with this block, and that is doing daily breath work or mobility incorporated into your routine. And this doesn't need to be something crazy long, crazy extensive. It can really, and I strongly recommend, that is to begin with a very short routine, let's say a 2 to 5 minute routine where you're doing either quick stretches, exercise snacks, some breath work. So something that is manageable that you will actually do, because when it comes to this, the consistency is really what's important, not the quantity of work that you're doing. One shout out that I want to give here that I've been using, and for anyone that has a Strava Premium subscription, they have a companion app called Recover that you get included with your subscription that I didn't know anything about. And then randomly one day I was searching on Strava and I found it. But what I really like about it is it ties into all of your activities and then will prompt you after a workout and say, kind of, here is a customized whatever, either strength, mobility workout. You can set goals and it will prompt you to do it. You can also build custom routines, all with audio and video guidance. So I find that's been really nice. And they also have a bunch of custom ones. So recently I've been dealing with a little bit of hip flexor pain. So I've been doing some mobility work for that. So I say what pain I have and it builds a routine for me. So it kind of takes the guesswork out of it and also has journaling features that I can track as I do it every day of like what my pain is like and just kind of a few quick notes about how the workout went. So that's a tool that I've been really liking for this.
That's so cool. I did not even know that existed or about the integration in with Strava. What was it called again?
Recover Athletics. The app, if you just search for Recover, you'll find.
That's super cool. Ty, is that something you use?
I had it back when I had Strava Premium, but now I'm on the peasant game, and I was going to say my strategy is I'm just scrolling through either TikTok, Facebook, or Instagram, and I just find a quick 30-second video on mobility or how to strengthen up your knees or something like that, and I send it to myself or Juicy. And I go back in the conversations, and when I'm due for a strength or mobility session, I just replay those videos, and I do it that way, I guess, is the peasant way of doing it. But yes, I did hear about it.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, I'm gonna have to check that out. That sounds nice. Yeah, I'm definitely a fan. Mobility for me is one that I loved. In previous years, I was doing a weekly hot yoga session. I was not getting injured during that time. Well, I mean, barring one snowboard incident, I did not get injured from running because I kept up the mobility, the strength. So I think yoga is actually great cross training. But if you don't have, an hour and $30 for a yoga class, doing that at home is really, really easy. I find getting a mirror from Facebook Marketplace, throwing that up alongside it on a wall plus a mat really gives you a great experience and keeps you coming back to the mat time and time again. The other thing for me is exercise snacks, just those little daily habits of part of your routine. Like for me, brushing my teeth on one leg just to build some of that like searching capability for my foot has been something that was recommended to me, and I've been doing it ever since. So I think, yeah, this is one of those points that's easy to do in bite-sized pieces, also important to do in a reoccurring like workout way. But I think the 5-minute routine does more than enough to activate those mobility pieces that you need to kind of recover and keep your body healthy when you're doing so much repetitive movement, whether you're running or cycling. I mean, swimming is probably a little bit of that mobility work for you triathletes.
Yeah, that's why I don't do any of it.
That's what I was gonna say. When you were like, "Oh yeah, I send all of these things to Juicy," I was like, "Yeah," and then friggin' twice a year you go in and do your mobility work.
I go into the vault and do my mobility work when I'm bored. When I stop swimming.
That's what I like about the app is it prompts me and then I just do it. Where I know I'm like this with Reddit, not for these specific things, but Reddit, I'll save posts to go back for later, recipes, whatever. They're dead in the vault. They just stay there in the vault. I never go back.
Yeah, the other nice thing is like if you're watching TV or something, just having the massage gun out, shaking the whole house down, or a foam roller, or just like an ice pack on the quads. Those kind of things are nice as well, just to recover a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. And I think going into every, block of season, let's call it, I try to focus on other things, like depending on what I'm doing upcoming, I try to focus on, kind of like Andrew saying, every year he tries to implement something new just to test it out. I try to do that a little bit with, either recovery or mobility or strength in something. So I think this next little bit, I'm hoping to do more mobility work and strength work in the gym. So we'll see if I could get into those videos soon enough.
Hey, I think the community would absolutely love if you filmed some 5-minute routines, posted it up on YouTube or in a short or something. I'd pay for that content.
I could be those videos that people
Exactly.
save for later.
Exactly. You could be in Andrew's vault.
Oh, you're going to go straight in the vault. But I will save it. I won't just swipe away.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, so on to tip 5 for more marginal gains outside of your workouts. And this is one that actually I have a history with from rowing back in the day. And Andrew, I remember sitting in a circle with the crew visualizing our race. And this is something that professional athletes in the sport are doing. Triathletes are using this. I know your friend Elliot is also one who likes to visualize before his races. And I know some of the Tour de France teams as well, they will visualize some of those attacks or those sprints. So race day, of course, leading into race day is one of those times where visualization can definitely help strengthen and motivate you and kind of like prepare your mind and body to actually feel what it will feel like, some of those emotions, and just get your mind in that space to be able to execute. So I think being able to see it in your mind, feel those emotions, and also believe that you can hit those big goals is something that not every athlete does, but is something that's very simple to implement so long as you have a little bit of imagination and a bit of motivation to actually give it a try. But I remember tracking on my watch back when we were rowing, and my heart rate would actually increase a pretty good amount when we were doing those race visualizations. And you'd start to feel like the hair on your arms tingle up when people are calling calls and that sort of thing. So it definitely does prepare you, because yeah, not much prepares you for that 35th kilometer outside of just going on crazy long runs. But at least putting your mind in that space is just another little marginal gain that I think shouldn't be overlooked.
Yeah, totally agree. I think this is one of those things that can kind of just sharpen your race IQ and just really kind of get you to the next level. And I think it's especially depending on the course you're doing, if there's specific course strategy or you're wanting to employ pace strategy, this is kind of a practice at that where you don't need to do a full-blown tune-up race, but it's kind of a supplement to that without having an extra training load on the body. So I think it really does help.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like I used to do that all the time playing hockey and soccer growing up. And as a goalie, I think it was just that much more important to visualize, put yourself in a quiet spot and just visualize game day and things like that. So I think I take that to these races and to this endurance world, is that I visualize even race morning. I have certain types of routine. Maybe we could put this in that category too. Of course, superstitions are always funny, but I do try to keep some consistencies, and some superstitions just will never leave you, and you just keep those the whole time.
And I think if I had to give a little bit of a tip to you listeners, is practice a little bit very simply. Just take 2 minutes before a run, after a run, and just think about yourself in kind of that closing kilometer of the next race that you're doing, and think about the intensity. Think about how you know your lungs will be on fire, how you know you'll be trying to push those legs to fall over each other as fast as possible, but they're screaming back out at you. Like, it's really hard to actually push and exert yourself so much to get in that zone, but with enough practice it's quite easy to get your mind to that place of, trying to think about how you'll be receiving all of that feedback from your body, how it will feel, and what you'll be thinking about to try to overcome all of that stimulus. Even just talking about it gets me riled up a little bit. I absolutely love it. So if you haven't tried to visualize, definitely encourage people to try.
Get me fired up. Exactly. I love it.
And then we move on to tip number 6, which is review and reflect on your training. But, and this part is very important, not obsess over the training, something that all three of us are definitely guilty of. And I think we can kick this one off with just having weekly check-ins with whatever tool you're using, whether that's your Strava account, Garmin, Coros, and just having weekly check-ins of, depending on what metric you care about, whether that's training hours, training distance, maybe elevation if you're training for a really hilly ultra, that might be something you care about. But just having those weekly check-ins where you're looking at the key metrics and kind of looking at that week over week progress to make sure that you're on track to hit that big goal that you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, this one points back to the data, right? The nice thing about these apps is that it's tracking so much data, but you need to at least review it from time to time to actually see the benefit of all the data that you're being fed. I know something that I find is really interesting is looking at the best efforts and that sort of thing, just to try to gauge where I am right now versus some of those all-time performances. Another thing that I like, and I know that you do this too, Andrew, and you actually name all your runs accordingly, is looking at previous work that you've done. I did VO2 max stuff today. I started with a blistering set, which was at 310 average pace, which I didn't think I could do. And then I looked at like previous times, even earlier this year, and I can see that the gains that I've made in that short time at those smaller VO2 max intervals. And that's really motivating. And it's now I've got my mind thinking about like, okay, what kind of splits will I hit at my next VO2 max session, because now I know that like my fitness has improved, and so I can start to adjust maybe what my 1K splits might be when I have my next VO2 session. So I love this point, but the not obsess is a tough one. I'm still dealing with that. That's a place I could use some marginal gains.
Exactly. Couldn't have said it better. I was just going to say, I took that too from Andrew's tips and tricks from his toolbox, is naming my runs more than just the classic morning run. That way you could go back and search up, even titling something funny, and you'll find it eventually, and you'll know your speed work. You could you could see your past performances and see, like, I'm going on the track this week. I totally forget what I was hitting, 2 weeks ago. Just go check out my last VO2 max effort. And that way I could benchmark what I'm trying to hit and go better from there.
Yeah, one thing I love about having all the data at your fingertips is being able to set realistic goal based on the data and not just some blind, I want to hit X time for X distance. Because sometimes, there's shiny numbers in endurance sports that you just want to hit, like that sub 3. For Brian, it's not just a shiny number. It's, I think, well within reason. But seeing that data, and I know the performance predictions on Strava, I actually find them quite and kind of within reason, and it does seem to shift. And mine has finally tipped below the goal that I'm currently setting for Berlin. So it's good to see that the kind of training is coming into, I'm seeing that fitness and the return on all the effort I've been putting in. But sometimes that's not the case, and you see numbers, maybe you've had a lot of other things come up in life, and it is kind of nice to be grounded in reality, to maybe pull back a little bit, and then maybe, who knows, on race day, you'll feel real good at half and you can blast off and tell Strava to eat it, because, you're faster than Strava thinks you are.
Yeah, and so this is hilarious. I'm glad that Strava thinks you're fast, because Strava no longer thinks I'm fast. It's got me pretty well pegged on my 5K, I think, and my 10K. But if I were to go out and run a marathon based on Strava's goal paces, I would be almost 10 minutes over my PR, because it thinks I'm a 325. And so that sub 3, according to Dr. Strava, is out of the question. So we will see, where I actually end up being. But I guess the little added point there is like, data can point you in the right direction, but data it can only do so much. And I'm somebody who works in data and uses it for like a lot of decision making in my life and professionally, but it can only do so much as well. Sometimes you just gotta trust the gut and go out there, blast in splits, and see if you can hang on.
I agree with that. I think you should. And maybe this is part of a hot take, but that's one of the reasons why I stopped my Strava Premium, was just because the data was off. I was just like, nope, this guy thinks I'm too slow. Dr. Strava thinks I'm too slow. I've been losing fitness for 3 years. And yeah, that's a major reason why I stopped the premium access, was because I just didn't feel the value in those numbers.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, that brings us to our 7th point for marginal gains, which is leaning into the community. I don't think there is a better case study than the Boys in Motion community itself in terms of how many gains can come from having a community of endurance athletes around you. I think the motivation that you get from others is contagious. Working out with others is the best thing in sport. And I think also sharing your goals publicly, shout out to the 3-hour project right now, not only does it help you stay accountable, but it gets people in your corner encouraging you, which is a really, really positive thing. So I think that community for me is definitely a big.
Absolutely, yeah. Boys in Motion on Strava, if you're not a part of the group, definitely join. You'll get lots of kudos, and those kudos definitely help quite a bit or the nice comments that you get on your Strava activity. It definitely helps fuel the fire, whether it's a chirp or not. All is appreciated and needed. And yeah, if it's, coming out of left field, getting called out, it fuels the fire more. Or if it's motivation, that's great too, and it keeps you moving along. So all is good, and we're all here to just kind of help each other along this thing that we call endurance sport.
100%. Just even texting someone before or after, being like, hey, I'm going out on a run today, either want to join or, hey, I'm going out, I'll talk to you later, just keeps you with that accountability and that motivation to keep you going. And, oh, my run was great, how are you doing today, kind of thing. It just, that community just stays alive, and you get fired up just talking to others about it.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with a little bit of friendly competition. I know even going into the marathon this fall, we've got some people like Mike and Mark and Jansen now in Toronto who are, may or may not be crossing the finish line close together. We'll see what they're training and how that dictates that. But really, I think it's nice to have a few people who are around the same speed, a few people who are faster than you, and a few people that you're pushing forward in the name of endurance. So I think all of that is just like, yeah, it's free real estate for a good time, and it definitely gets me moving faster every time. I knew, Tyler, in that first split of my VO2 max this morning, I knew that you'd be looking at it, and you delivered a nice comment. It sets the endorphins high, and now I'll be looking at your next VO2 max session. So I'm calling you out here. I want to see some fast.
All right, Roger that. I'll be thinking of that too now. Just great.
Yeah. Now, I talking so much VO2 Max smack talk. I got to give a shout out to the Vaughn Run Club. Huge fans of the pod, but also they're crushing every single week, Thursday mornings. It's their only run of the week most of the time. I know Tomic goes out for a few more, but they really, really do enjoy those VO2 Max sessions, and they're getting real speedy. I think some of us might have trouble hanging on their coattails.
I want to go ahead, Andrew.
What I really liked is that it's normally on a track, but I saw Tomix this week. Oh, we're same wavelength here. I saw he found a perfect circle in a park, and that freaked me out when I saw that. I'll tell you that.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It looks like he's running around a portal.
It was a wedding ring.
Literally wedding ring. I was gonna say he's training for the Duck Duck Go friggin' world champs.
I can't believe I was gonna comment on the same thing. I love it.
Yeah,
that's nice.
Guys of beauty, and in Devin's best man speech at Tomic's wedding, there was a mention of somebody doing a half Ironman. So you might have a young Padawan, Tyler, to give some tips and tricks, especially on the aero game on the bike, because Devin basically called out Tomic and said he's doing a half Ironman.
I like that. I'm totally in. We'll definitely be getting in some chats.
Okay, awesome. So that's, I think, the core bulk of the 7 marginal gain tips that we had for everybody. Sleeping like you mean it, fueling when you're not working out, so that other 90% of the day, reducing that cognitive load as much as you can. Try to quit your job if you've got fast enough paces and Morton will sponsor you, go for it. Doing some daily mobility and or breath work can help a little bit. Visualizing like a pro, just like Kipchoge, and then reflecting and reviewing, aka just like surfing Strava when you're not exercising, is a great way to get jealous of people who are doing cool things. And then leaning into community is another beautiful part of sport. Those are your 7 marginal gains. Anything else you guys got?
Basically the 7 wonders, baby. We got to keep it going.
The one thing that I want to close off, and as we go into the hot take section, I think we've all been guilty of this, but I think people that are just getting into the sport, into endurance sports, want all the fancy things, get caught up with quite a bit. And that is, you don't need more gear, more fancy tools, fancy gadgets, fancy equipment. You just need better habits, and I promise you, you will get faster.
That's true. Yeah, consistency is king above all else. Now, I do think the little bit of gear that is nice is a shoe rotation. So just having a few shoes to go out with is, I think, the minimum gear. But once you got those shoes, the only thing you're missing is miles.
I think one of my favorite memes, and I've sent it to you guys multiple times, is the comparison of They do different distances, but the like sub 15 5K runner versus which is like a pack of cigarettes, a mustache, 2-inch shorts, and
And
beat up
an
pair of kicks.
espresso.
And an espresso, and then you have the 40-minute runner that's like Alpha Fly 3s, hydration vest, Satisfy running gear, and I chuckle every time I see
The
them.
Oakleys, yeah, it's
Oh, you
amazing.
need the big Oakleys. We all have them, but we're pretty speedy.
Yeah, 100%. And I think like what Brian was saying, you got the shoe rotation, you need the miles. I have to give a shout out to McDuff. I did see him this weekend, and he's gearing up for the Ottawa Army Run half marathon. And he's got one pair of shoes he's been running in his whole career right now. And I'm about to give him a pair of my old race shoes that are still brand new. I just don't wear them anymore. So I think he's going to be blistering fast.
Does he have a goal time? Because McDuff could be, flying by your PR.
I'm scared. And I guess to my advantage, he hasn't really been training much. And he's basically just starting kind of now, and it's in 2 or 3 weeks. But he said he's going to try to stick with me. I'm using it as a marathon paced workout. So I'm going to go out at marathon pace and try to speed it up at the end. So I think it could do for a pretty good race actually on both of our ends, because it's not all maxed out for me. And of course it won't be for him because he's a speedy guy either way.
Geez, well, as long as he doesn't, have a Zin and an espresso at the start line, you might be okay. But that's going to be a good showdown. I'm going to be tracking you guys on the app. Is there an army run like tracking?
I'll have to see. There'll definitely be something. I just don't know what it is, but yeah, we'll definitely have to. I'll have to watch out for him in the closing miles of that race. That's for sure.
So yeah, that's cool. What would a successful race mean for you?
I don't know time wise. Really, I've been just looking at dialing in my marathon pace. So just sticking on that PR pace. I'm going to try to do that through 12K and then see how I feel. Kind of speed up, probably, hopefully progression into the final 7K ish, and hopefully not regress. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now that's on the 21st of September, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So Andrew, that's the exact same day as the Berlin Marathon.
It is. It is. I'll be 6 hours ahead, so I hopefully, knock on wood, that I'll be done by then. But yes, it is on the same.
So I think that's episode 66 is going to be the race review episode of all time. If both of you are coming off of races, Tyler for your showdown against McDuff, and
True.
Andrew, yeah, a world major. That's gonna be a hot episode.
We'll do a mini. We don't need a good feedback of this showdown, but we'll definitely be chatting about it. But I'm excited to see that marathon from the major.
Yeah, we'll do kind of like a 60-second recap of yours.
Yeah.
And then yes,
60
then the rest of
min for
yeah,
yeah. I like
exactly.
that.
That's perfect.
Yeah, we might need to call McDuff depending on the results of the race. We might need to call him in to, there might be some trash talk that's getting thrown around after that race, because I think like Safan Hassan and at the Olympics, the shoulder at the end of the race, I can definitely see some of that's going down on the streets of Ottawa.
Yeah, already in the BIM 5K, these guys were almost shoving each other across the line. So yeah, Army Run's not going to know what hit them. All right, that is it for today's episode on marginal gains you can make outside of your training. So hopefully you're walking away with a few small wins, a few places where you can speed up while also sometimes slowing down and just stacking that recovery.
And if you got value from listening or watching to this episode, be sure to follow us on Instagram, join the Boys in Motion on Strava for those kudos, and share this one with your favorite training buddy who keeps overthinking their watch data.
Of course. And obviously, our weekly reminder, we are not doctors or pros, but we wish we were both. We're just a few guys just trying to outsmart our own bad habits with these marginal gains. Always consult the pros and the doctors before making big changes.
Awesome. Until next time, stay sweaty, stay steady, and remember, tiny gains, big game.